Welcome to Crafts and Minis. This week I've been getting after that hobby, doing the hashtag Hobby Streak Challenge, where every day I do just a little bit of work in the hobby, whether it be assembly or basing, crafting or painting. And this week I did some basing, some priming, and a little bit of painting. My total for 2020 now, doing this hashtag Hobby Streak of a little bit in the hobby every day, is up to 112 minis painted, because this week I got 40 minis done. Now, I was able to get 40 minis done this week, not because I had more time than normal. Actually, I had a little less time than normal on most weeks, but I was doing batch painting and taking advantage of some of those shortcuts that allow you to paint a lot of minis in less time. So I just wanted to show you what I was able to get done. And I got these three main groups of creatures that are going to be used in tabletop games, Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot. But they're a lot of fun, and they're from different places. So I wanted to show them off. First of all, on the left, you see this guy, and this is a Rancor monster from Star Wars. In the pit at Jabba the Hutt's, there was one of these. Now I've got 14 in a much more miniature scale than what was in the movie in Return of the Jedi. But, you know, one, I'm officially a Star Wars fan site now because I have a Rancor monster on my channel. But two, this is a unique mini. So this is not found on the shelf in a blister pack. You have to get one of the old Star Wars Risk board games. And I know Star Wars has put out a bunch of different products and a bunch of different games even, and versions of Risk even. So I can't tell you which version of Risk, but if you do your research, you can find out which version has the little Rancor monsters. So my dad might have found these. I can't remember. I'll give him credit for finding these on eBay. He found 14 of them, which turned out great. And they are mounted on 1-inch fender washer bases. You can see that. And you see the green plastic that you can see through there. That's what they're made out of, is that classic kind of board game Green Army Men style plastic. Real cheap, bendy even. But I was able to put them on these fender washers, give them a little bit of weight, and they were super quick to do. So I used over my Zenithal Prime, black all around, white from the top. I did use a Citadel contrast paint. I forget the flavor. It's the Nurgle flavor. And so it was a little more yellow than green, which I was expecting a little greener, but that's okay. So I did that first, let them dry, and then I did my sepia wash all around from Vallejo, and it worked out really well. Then I based them up like I standardly do. So 14 of those guys. Now, those could be like troglodytes or just some sort of cave dweller or some little alien or whatever in a tabletop game. But it's nice to have 14 of a mini that you can throw down that's medium size, and that looks really fun. And if someone like points them out and say, yeah, hey, those look familiar, I can say, yeah, that's a Rancor monster. I used to have a big toy of a Rancor monster my dad found at a thrift store when I was a kid, but I didn't know he found it at a thrift store. It was missing an arm, and I used to feed it grapes because the mouth would move, and it was awesome, and I'd have to clean the grapes out of the inside, or maybe I didn't. But it's a little personal history. Next up is the same sculpt 14 times again of a gremlin. Now, this could be a gremlin in D&D or any tabletop game, or it could be just any sort of nasty little fey creature. But I really liked the sculpt. And a couple times a year, I go on the secondhand seller sites like Troll and Toad, and there's some others, to just see what sculpts are out there for HeroClix. So these were originally HeroClix. They might have actually been in the HorrorClix line. And so they had the big Clix bases, so I pop them off those bases. I actually glued these on the 1-inch counting chip bases that I show in a bunch of my videos. And I did them real fast and dirty. I did, I think, 4 different, and you can't necessarily tell now, but 4 different colors of Citadel contrast paint on them. And one, the purple didn't work that well of the Citadel contrast paint for this style. And really, the contrast paint's better on something like this that has more texture on it than on something like this that is very smooth. But I did that, and it worked okay, just to get them some color. And then I went over them with the same sepia wash, and then I simply paint the eyes white, and then do Tamiya clear red, which is like that candy red color in the eyes like I do for my monsters. And that just shines a little bit, which is a lot of fun. So 14 of those with 4 different tones, colors. After I did those orcs from my first week of 2020 with the different color outfits, I wanted to kind of mix up creatures like that in different colors. Like if I did that a year ago, they would have all been the same color. Now this is a fun sculpt. This is a hyena, also from HeroClix. I think there might be actually 2 different styles of the hyena, but I think I might have just gotten mainly one of the style. And I got a dozen of these, so there are 12 of these hyenas. And they go with like the DC line with Harley Quinn, and these are, I think, her 2 hyenas from the comics. And here's what's interesting. So I took these and I popped them off the HeroClix bases, and then I glued them to the 1-inch counting chips. And as I was looking at them, I was like, I was planning on just priming them like I normally do and repainting them completely. But instead, the color was right. It was a lighter color that if you're going to put a wash over, will stand out still. And it had all these spots on the sides, like the cartoony hyena spots that they have on the HeroClix hyenas. And so, I was like, you know what? I can just touch these up and use part of the original paint job. So what I did was I dry brushed on the fur and the tail and the mohawk, a little lighter color. I painted the collar silver, and then I used that sepia wash. And I got to tell you, it worked out pretty good. And then I did another wash on the collar, but I really, really like them. I think, they're great for a quick and dirty mini. And that was really fun, being able to use the original HeroClix paint job, just touch it up a little bit, and then do a wash. And hey, that looked awesome. Now, one of the things you find sometimes with minis is they don't always come with all of the parts that they're originally supposed to come with. So this is one of those minis. If you notice on this mini, on the right, it has a jaw and a tongue. Well, this guy was missing his jaw and tongue piece. It wasn't glued in there. And actually, they just said on the Reaper Live this week, the show, that a lot of times when they do these sculpts, they have to do a separate piece for the lower jaw, like on a dragon or something that has teeth and a tongue, because of the way sculpting or way the casting works for miniatures, that it's more difficult on the mold if you don't do it that way. So this guy looks fine from the top. Like on the table, he's not going to be a problem, right? Like that's about the distance you're going to see him on the table, no problem. But what I did, it's like, oh, okay, I could have like tried to sculpt a jaw. No, I just used the same pumice paste I use on the base underneath the jaw, and then I just went after it. I painted it a lighter color and then did the wash. And you know what? For the table, that's not like an effective conversion if you're up close, but for the table, I just wanted him to look like he wasn't missing it. And he's like mangy. He's a hyena. He's got like a burnt up face, we're going to say. And so that worked out really well. But overall this week, 40 minis was good. I worked on some other minis that I didn't get finished. Actually, one of those that I didn't get finished was a beholder. I really messed it up. I got to go back to the drawing board on what I'm doing with it. And then I have some other pieces that I'm really excited to finish up for next week and get to show you. But this week, 40 miniatures down, 112 miniatures done overall doing the hashtag hobby streak. And it's never too late to do day 1 of hashtag hobby streak. Even if you only get a few days in, you're going to learn a lot about your own techniques when it comes to the hobby and getting paint on miniatures, or just like your own priorities, even in life, right? So it's a challenge. So I have some nights, where I'm already in bed and it's like, I know I worked on the hobby, I just didn't take a picture yet. And so I even get out of bed and take a picture just to document that I'm doing it. And believe me, that's just for me. I understand there are people who watch these videos and really enjoy them, and I love that. But the streak is for myself, just to make sure, I'm held accountable to some of my personal goals for the hobby. And it's so fun to be able to share them with you. So this week, 40 minis, 3 poses, lots of fun. And I encourage you, go get after that hobby.